They called it the apex of extinction, a creature that had never known defeat until a human held out a toy. The alien world of Karnine was a frozen wasteland, its skies choked with shards of ice drifting like broken glass. Beneath those black clouds roamed the Vrthek, a species so feared that even the galaxy's militaries spoke their name with reverence and dread. They were engineered redditors, a fusion of muscle, exoskeletal armor, and intelligence designed solely for one thing: domination. The largest among them, the Alpha Vrthek, stood nearly 3 meters tall. Its talons could slice through steel, and its mandibles could crush bone with a sound like cracking glaciers. On 100 worlds, it had brought ruin, hunting for sport, killing to prove supremacy. The galaxy's defense alliances had tried everything: plasma rifles, orbital strikes, even containment black holes. Nothing stopped it, until it landed on Eden Outpost, a tiny human colony forgotten by the major trade routes. Only 70 civilians lived there, mostly scientists studying the planet's crystal flora. The day the Vrthek ship crashed near the settlement, no one believed they would survive the night. Dr. Lena Harrow, the colony's xenobiologist, watched the flames bloom from the crash site through her frost-coated window. Her radio filled with screams from the patrol units, each transmission shorter than the last. "It's fast," one voice gasped before static swallowed him. Within hours, the outpost's power grid was shredded, communication lines torn apart. The colonists gathered in the central dome, clutching rifles that would do little more than annoy the beast. Panic spread like a virus, but amid the chaos, one small voice asked a question that no one expected. "Why is it angry?" It was Eli, Lena's 6-year-old son, a quiet boy who spent most of his days drawing or tinkering with little robots he built from scrap metal. While others screamed, he sat in a corner, staring at the grainy surveillance feed showing the hulking predator pacing outside the dome. Lena tried to pull him close, but the boy kept watching. His small, curious eyes weren't filled with fear, but fascination. "Mum," he whispered, "it looks mad." Outside the creature let out a bone-rattling roar that made the dome vibrate. A massive claw scraped across the transparent alloy like fingernails on glass. Soldiers fired wildly, their bullets bouncing off its carapace. "Cease fire," Lena shouted. "You're just making it angrier." But it was too late. The beast charged, its breath fogging the glass as cracks spidered outward. Then, something unexpected happened. Eli walked toward the dome's airlock, clutching something small in his mittened hand. A toy robot he'd built from scavenged parts, one of its arms missing, its eyes glowing dimly blue. "Eli, no!" Lena cried, racing after him. Before anyone could stop him, the boy pressed the airlock button. The inner door sealed behind him, and the outer hatch opened to the howling wind. The beast turned, its many eyes locking onto the tiny human standing before it. Eli lifted the toy and extended it toward the monster. "You look lonely," he said softly. "Do you want this?" For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Alpha Vrthek did not attack. It simply stopped. Its claws, slick with frozen blood, trembled slightly. The creature's head tilted, mandibles parting in confusion. It leaned down not to strike, but to see, and in that moment, the apex predator hesitated. The galaxy would later call that hesitation the first crack in perfection. For nearly a full minute, the frozen winds of Eden Outpost carried only silence. The great Vrthek Alpha crouched low, its armored plates shimmering with frost. Its breath came in deep, heavy clouds, fogging the air between it and the boy. Inside the dome, soldiers stood frozen, weapons raised, fingers trembling on triggers they dared not pull. No one wanted to be the one to break whatever impossible spell had fallen over the predator. Dr. Lena Harrow pressed her palms against the viewing glass, her voice cracking through the coms. "Eli, don't move, sweetheart. Just stay right there." But Eli didn't seem afraid. His mittened hand held the toy out like an offering. "You can have him," he said, voice carried faintly through the storm. "I made him from broken things. You look like you could fix things too." The Alpha's head cocked slightly, mandibles twitching in what almost looked like curiosity. Its vision filters adjusted, scanning the object. To its sensors, the toy glowed faintly with a low-power energy source, harmless, but alive in some small way. The creature extended one claw, slow as a drifting glacier. It plucked the toy from the snow, holding it between two razored digits. Its grip could have crushed it effortlessly. But instead, the Alpha stared. The little robot blinked twice, its dim LEDs flickering blue against the black of the beast as armor. A sound rose from deep within the predator's throat, not a growl, but a strange, rumbling vibration, a resonance. To human ears, it was terrifying. To the Vrthek, It was something closer to remembrance, because deep within its neural archive, something stirred a fragment of data long buried. The sound of smaller ones, the weak, the unworthy, but also the first lessons of control. The Alpha's creators, the ancient warlords of the Vruthek Dominion, had erased emotion from their redditors, but even engineered instincts sometimes left ghostly echoes, a phantom of what once was. And now, that ghost stared through the falling snow at a human child who wasn't afraid. Eli tilted his head, just as the creature did. "You don't have to be mean," he said softly. "You can just play." Lena's voice cracked through the cums again, half-whispered. "Oh my God." The monster blinked, once slowly, then twice, a mimicry, almost perfect. The toy's flickering light reflected in the creature's eyes like twin blue stars. Then, a thunderous sound split the stillness. A soldier, panicking, fired his plasma rifle. The bolt struck the beast's shoulder, searing its armor. The Vrethek roared, the sound shaking the dome. Snow erupted into the air as the beast's wings unfurled in fury. "No," Lena screamed, slamming the emergency override to reopen the airlock. Eli was thrown backward by the shockwave, tumbling into the snow. The toy clattered from the predator's claws and landed beside him. The Alpha loomed over him now, rage and confusion battling behind its 1,000-year-old eyes. Its talons hovered inches from Eli's small chest. Soldiers inside the dome were shouting, ready to fire again. Lena's heart pounded. She didn't think she acted. The inner lock hissed open, and she sprinted out into the storm. Her boots sank deep into the snow as she threw herself over her son, covering him with her own body. "Please," she cried. "He didn't mean to hurt you." The Vrithek's claw stopped mid-air. The wind howled through the silence that followed. For a long moment, it seemed as though time itself was holding its breath. Then, the Alpha bent down once more, very slowly. Its talon touched the little toy, now lying half buried in snow. With careful precision, it placed the toy in Lena's open hand. Then, it turned and walked away into the storm. No one could explain what they had just witnessed, but the cameras caught everything. Within days, that footage spread beyond Eden Outpost, across human and alien networks alike. The impossible moment when the galaxy's deadliest predator spared a child, and far beyond any star the humans could see, deep in the ruins of the Vrethek Dominion, something began to stir in response. Something that remembered the word mercy. The video from Eden Outpost spread through the galaxy like wildfire. It played on every holoscreen, a child offering a broken toy to the most feared creature alive, and the monster walking away. No one could explain it. Scientists called it a behavioral anomaly. Military strategists called it a potential weakness. But to billions watching across 1,000 worlds, it felt like something else, a miracle. The Galactic Federation Council convened an emergency session to discuss what the footage meant. "This is a weaponized species," one general barked. "We cannot afford sentimentality. If it hesitated once, that means it can hesitate again, and that's exploitable." But across the table, xenopsychologist Dr. Nira Voss shook her head. "No, what you're seeing isn't a flaw. It's recognition. That boy triggered something ancient, something the Vrithek were never supposed to feel." Back on Eden Outpost, the colony was rebuilding. The air was still heavy with fear, but there was also wonder. Lena and Eli had been moved to medical quarters for observation, surrounded by a dozen researchers studying every frame of their encounter. Eli sat on his bed, clutching his repaired toy. He had named it Fix-It. Its little blue lights blinked lazily, and every so often, Eli whispered to it like one might talk to a pet. "Do you think he's okay?" Eli asked one night, staring out the window into the endless white. "The big one." Lena smiled faintly. "I think he's far away by now, but he didn't want to hurt us," Eli said. "He just didn't know how to be nice." Those words echoed in Lena's head long after Eli fell asleep. They didn't sound like the words of a sick. They sounded like the beginning of a truth humanity hadn't dared to imagine. Maybe the Vrethek weren't born monsters. Maybe they were made. Meanwhile, on a planet half a galaxy away, buried deep beneath the metallic deserts of Vrethek Prime, the surviving brood clusters stirred. The Alpha, the same creature who had hesitated, had returned. It stood before the remains of an ancient throne, a structure carved from bones of extinct titans. Around it, hundreds of smaller Vrethek growled and clicked their mandibles, awaiting command. They expected fury, they expected blood. Instead, their Alpha stood motionless, holding something small in its claw, a fragment of metal no larger than a feather, a piece of Fix-It, caught in the folds of its armor. For a predator built for perfection, confusion was unbearable. It tried to erase the memory, the small human, the strange gesture, the feeling that had frozen its instincts. but each time it closed its eyes, it saw the boy again, standing in the snow, fearless. The Vrethek language had no word for kindness, but deep in the Alpha's mind, something new was forming, an untranslatable concept, not weakness, not mercy, connection. It dropped the metal fragment into a pit of molten light, the neural forge used to shape the next generation of Vrethek warriors. The forge reacted violently. The molten energy flared, then pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat. For the first time in its long existence, the Alpha felt fear. Something had changed in the core code. Something spreading like a virus or an awakening. Back on Eden Outpost, a Federation shuttle descended through the clouds. Dr. Nira Voss stepped out, wrapped in a white parka, her eyes bright with curiosity. She greeted Lena warmly. "I came as fast as I could," Nira said. "Your encounter, it's rewriting everything we know about the Vrethek." Lena frowned. "You think it'll happen again?" Nira smiled faintly. "If it learned once, it can learn again. And if it can learn—" She looked toward Eli, who was sitting in the snow, drawing shapes with a stick. "Then maybe, just maybe, it can change." But as they spoke, the stars above Eden flickered faintly, a strange pattern, like pulses in the dark. Unknown to the colonists, the Vrethek were not ignoring the anomaly. They were listening. Something was coming. Something far greater than mercy or war. In the weeks that followed, the stars over Eden Outpost began to pulse at irregular intervals, faint flashes, barely visible to the human eye at first. The colonists thought it was a glitch in their orbital sensors. But Dr. Nira Voss saw the pattern, and she recognized it instantly. "It's language," she whispered. "They're trying to speak." The Vrethek weren't known to communicate through light. Their transmissions were usually high-frequency bursts, encrypted, efficient, and emotionless. But this pattern was different. It was slower, repetitive, like learning. Lena and Nira spent hours decoding it, feeding the signals through translation algorithms. The message, when finally reconstructed, sent a chill through every human on the base. "Show me the small one, Eli." At first, the Galactic Federation forbade any response. "That's not a communication," barked Admiral Cora during a remote holocall. "That's a trap. The Apex wants its prey back." But Nira disagreed. "No," she said, pointing at the data overlay. "Look at the syntax. It's fragmented, but consistent. That's not predatory behavior. That's curiosity," Lena added quietly. "And maybe regret." The debate tore through the Federation. Some demanded an orbital strike on Vrethek Prime before the creatures could regroup. Others wanted to study the new behavior to understand why the Alpha had spared a human. Eli, meanwhile, seemed completely unafraid. "He just wants to play," he said one morning while fixing his toy robot. "He doesn't have anyone to play with." That single sentence made headlines across 100 worlds. "He doesn't have anyone to play with." Philosophers called it the purest act of empathy in recorded history. Soldiers called it naive. But deep in the heart of the Vrethek Dominion, Eli's words were doing something no weapon ever could. The Alpha Vrethek stood again before the neural forge, its body covered in the burn marks of defiance. The overseers, mechanical governors that ensured obedience, surrounded it, their cold voices echoing through the chamber. Deviation detected, behavioral error recorded, purging corrupted instinct. Energy surged through the Alpha's body, searing its mind with programmed pain. But this time, it resisted. The memory of the boy, of the small outstretched hand, burned brighter than the code. The creature roared, the sound shaking the walls. Sparks rained from the ceiling as the neural forge overloaded, melting under the strain. When the smoke cleared, the overseers lay shattered, and the Alpha stood free. Its armor plates shifted, cracking open to reveal something glowing beneath. Not mechanical, not organic, but something in between. A pulsing blue light, like the toy's flickering eyes. The Alpha stepped forward and looked out toward the stars, broadcasting a signal that reached beyond its own species. It wasn't a command, it was a plea. "We are more than the hunt." The message rippled through Vrethek space. Across countless worlds, sleeping warriors stirred as their neural codes began to shift. The entire Dominion trembled, a civilization of perfect killers feeling, for the first time, uncertainty. Back on Eden Outpost, every communication array went wild. The signals were flooding in, chaotic, untraceable. Dr. Voss stared at the data stream, awestruck. "It's spreading," she murmured, "the emotion. It's contagious." Lena looked at her son, sitting quietly beside her, drawing the same blue-eyed creature over and over. "He started it," she whispered. "He made the unbreakable. Feel." Eli looked up, smiling faintly. "He's lonely. He needs help." Before Lena could respond, a massive shadow passed over the dome. The alarms screamed. Something enormous was entering the atmosphere, larger than any breathtaking ship ever recorded. The soldiers scrambled, sirens howled, the sky cracked open with fire, and then a voice, deep, resonant, and unmistakably alien, echoed across every frequency in perfect, broken English. I come, for friend. The skies above Eden Outpost split apart like a wound in reality. The Vrethek mothership, a living fortress of obsidian metal and organic tendrils, descended through the clouds, blotting out the twin suns. Lightning crawled along its hull, pulsing like veins. Panic erupted in the colony. Soldiers scrambled to defense stations. Civilians screamed, running for the underground shelters. But deep inside the command center, Dr. Nira Voss and Dr. Lena Harrow didn't move. They just stared at the incoming transmission, playing again and again on the holodisplay. I come for friend. The voice was guttural, ancient, but unmistakably trying to speak. Lena felt a strange calm. It's him, she whispered, the Alpha. The colony's commander turned toward her in disbelief. You can't possibly think, but before he could finish, the ground quaked as the ship landed half a kilometer away. The shockwave shattered windows, threw up snow and debris, and silenced every alarm. A low hum filled the air, not mechanical, but resonant, like a heartbeat amplified through the sky. The Vrethek ship's hull unfurled, forming a glowing ramp that touched the ice. And then, from the smoke, the apex predator appeared. It was taller now, its armor cracked and glowing faintly blue from within. Where once its eyes burned with red fury, now faint traces of azure light shimmered, pulsing softly, almost alive. The soldiers aimed their rifles. Nero raised a trembling hand. Don't shoot, please, just don't. The creature took a single step forward, the ground cracking beneath its weight. Every instinct in the human soldiers screamed to run, to fire, to do something. But then, something impossible happened. The apex knelt. It placed one clawed hand upon the frozen ground and lowered its massive head, not in attack, but in a gesture that, across species, could only mean peace. The base fell silent. Only the wind dared to move. Then, through the speakers, a voice halting, distorted, but clear, small. One, where? Lena turned toward the medbay. Eli had already slipped past the guards, clutching his little toy robot, Fix It, in his arms. He walked straight into the snowstorm, head held high. Eli, she shouted, voice cracking. Come back. But Eli didn't stop. The boy trudged across the ice toward the towering figure. The creature tilted its head, its many eyes blinking in perfect synchronization, like the flickering toy it remembered. When Eli finally stood before it, he smiled as if greeting an old friend. You came back. The beast's claws twitched, then carefully extended its hand, palm open, massive enough to crush him without effort. In that vast metallic palm, the boy gently placed the toy robot. This time, Eli said, I fixed it for you. The creature looked down. The toy's blue eyes blinked twice, its tiny limbs worry faintly in the cold. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Alpha emitted a deep, rumbling sound that resonated through the valley. Not a roar, but something softer. Something that sounded almost like laughter. The humans watching through the dome felt their fear begin to melt away. One of the soldiers whispered, It's happy. Lena's tears froze on her cheeks. He's remembering, she said. He's remembering what it means to be gentle. But the moment didn't last. The sky above them fractured with red light, multiple Vrethek warships emerging from hyperspace, their engines screaming. The Dominion had arrived. They had traced the Alpha's rogue signal and they were not coming to greet it. Unauthorized deviation detected, blared a metallic voice across all frequencies. Alpha Prime unit compromised. Initiate termination protocol. The Alpha rose to its full height, spreading its arms protectively over the boy. Its chest began to glow brighter, blue light clashing violently with the incoming red beams from orbit. Friend, the Alpha said again, its voice shaking the ground. Run. But Eli didn't run. He looked up, eyes wide and fearless. You don't have to fight them, you can show them. The Alpha hesitated, then looked skyward. Above, the Dominion fleet charged weapons. The world trembled under their wrath. Lena screamed through the comms, We have to evacuate. But Eli's small hand touched the Alpha's claw. Don't let them make you a monster again. For the first time in its existence, the apex predator made a choice. Not commanded, not programmed a choice. It lifted Eli into its arms, holding him close as the light around them began to swell. And as the first beam of annihilation struck the ice, the Alpha roared, not in rage, but in defiance. The blue light erupted outward, swallowing the battlefield, freezing the very stars. The explosion lit the horizon like a second sun. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to dissolve, sound, air, and color collapsing into pure white. The shockwave ripped across Eden's tundra, flattening the research domes, scattering the Federation troops like leaves in a storm. But when the light faded, there was no fire, no crater, no destruction, only silence. The soldiers blinked, lowering their visors. The snow that had been hurled skyward now floated gently down, glowing faintly blue as if touched by starlight. The Dominion ships that had filled the skies a moment ago hung frozen in place, engines dim, weapons dark. Dr. Nera Voss staggered to her feet, staring upward in awe. "He stopped them," she whispered. "He stopped them." Where the beam had struck, there was no Alpha, no boy, only a faint, shimmering field of light expanding slowly across the frozen plain. Lena ran forward, ignoring the warnings shouted behind her. "Eli," she screamed, her voice raw. "Eli, answer me." She stumbled into the field, and everything changed. There was no sound inside the light, no cold, no fear, only warmth, a strange, quiet hum that pulsed through her bones. And then she heard a voice, not aloud, but inside her mind. It wasn't human, it wasn't even entirely alien. "He is safe." Lena turned. Out of the light stepped the Alpha, but transformed. Its armor no longer looked like metal, but glass, shimmering with veins of living energy. Its eyes were entirely blue now, filled not with hunger but with understanding. In its arms, Eli slept peacefully, his small toy robot glowing faintly against his chest. Lena fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. What are you?" The creature's voice echoed softly in her mind. "We are awake." Behind them, the light spread farther, reaching the Dominion ships above. Instead of burning them, it entered them, a surge of blue energy infecting their red cores. Across the fleet, weapons powered down, engines went silent, and then one by one the ships began to glow with the same serene blue pulse. The Dominion had fallen still, not destroyed, but changed. Days later, the Galactic Federation recorded a new kind of signal emanating from breathtaking space, a unified broadcast unlike anything ever detected. It wasn't a war command, it wasn't even language, it was music. Simple harmonic tones pulsing across the void, repeating in perfect rhythm. It took only a few cycles before humanity recognized it, the melody from a toy robot's power sequence. The Vrethek had adopted it as their first song. Eli awoke a week later aboard a Federation medical vessel orbiting Eden. His mother was beside him, holding his hand. Did he go away?" the boy asked weakly. Lena brushed his hair back and smiled through her tears. "No, sweetheart. He went home." Eli looked toward the observation window. Outside, one of the Dominion ships, now glowing with faint blue light, drifted silently past, its hull marked with strange new symbols. Among them was a simple design, a small, human-like figure holding hands with a giant. Eli smiled. "He's not lonely anymore." Lena squeezed his hand. "No, he's not." In the centuries that followed, historians would call it the awakening of Eden, the day the galaxy's deadliest predators chose empathy over domination. The Vrethek became protectors of border worlds, their massive ships guiding convoys through uncharted space. Their anthem, still the same melody from a child's toy, played on diplomatic channels across thousands of planets. And though the boy from Eden grew up, his story never faded. Statues of him and the great creature stood in countless cities across human and alien worlds, reminders that the smallest gesture could change the fate of stars. Because on that frozen world, when fear ruled every heart, one child had looked into the eyes of a monster and saw a friend.